Welcome to In Depth. The U.S. envoy for Lebanon, Amos Hochstein, who had previously declared his optimism for a new ceasefire, says there is a shot to secure a deal in Lebanon soon. Meanwhile, the Israeli military is intensively bombing the southern suburbs of Beirut after evacuation warnings for the neighborhoods, making the third consecutive day of these strikes. Amidst the ongoing violence, can the United States make any progress in bringing peace to the region, or will these talks fall short once again? That will be our discussion. Stay tuned.
منطقة سكنية لا فيها أشياء عسكرية ولا فيها شيء. أول شيء أنا عاجز ومدي أهرب.
In a country of that size, which is relatively small, and a population that's estimated around 5 million people, you can imagine how dramatic it is that over 1 million people are now without shelter and on the move.
President Biden's senior advisor Amos Hochstein believes there is a shot of securing a ceasefire deal in Lebanon soon. He made this comment after meeting with Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, who traveled to Washington to meet other U.S. officials like Secretary of State Antony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. In light of Hochstein's statement, the Times of Israel reported that Israel is pushing ahead with efforts to forge a ceasefire in Lebanon as an early foreign policy gift, that's how they put it, for the incoming Trump administration. In addition, the newspaper highlighted Dermer's visit to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida.
Amid rising tensions, U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein expressed optimism about a potential ceasefire in Lebanon. Speaking at the White House, Hochstein suggested that there is a shot at securing peace following a meeting with Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, who presented Israel's updated stance on the ceasefire proposal. Reports indicate that Israel and the U.S. have submitted the draft ceasefire agreement to Lebanon and are awaiting Hezbollah's response. However, Israel demands a side letter from Washington providing assurances that Israel can take military action against Hezbollah if it attempts to re-establish its presence along the border. Although progress is being made on this front, Hezbollah has firmly stated it will not accept any arrangement permitting Israeli military operations in Lebanon. The situation is further complicated by statements from Israel's new defense minister, Israel Katz, who declared that there will be no ceasefire or easing of military action, while emphasizing the importance of achieving Israel's war objectives. Meanwhile, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati traveled to Beirut to discuss the humanitarian crisis exacerbated by ongoing hostilities and to express solidarity with Lebanon. Additionally, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said recently that Israeli officials insist on maintaining the capacity to strike Lebanon at any moment as part of conditions to secure a ceasefire with Hezbollah. As diplomatic efforts intensify, one question looms large. Will this ceasefire proposal be the breakthrough Lebanon desperately needs, or is it merely another fleeting hope in a complex conflict?
We are joined now from Beirut by Dr. Najat Aoun Saliba, a member of the Lebanese parliament, and from Ramallah by Dr. Murad Harfouch, a writer and political analyst. Welcome. Let me start with Dr. Najat now. In light of the current escalation, what are the chances of any talks or any negotiations?
Good afternoon to you and to your listeners and viewers. Thank you for inviting me it's contradictory and a bit perplexed of what is being said and what we see on the ground. We have seen since 2 days ago a huge escalation and a spike in the number of strikes that has bombarded the southern Beirut area. And at the same time, in parallel, we see talks about ceasefire that are so what can I say, that are ironic a little bit. You know, when we talk about ceasefire, I think we should be some amelioration of the ground situation. We don't see that. We see more mass killing and we see more mass destruction on the ground without any explanation. We understand that in the past they were bombing some depots of munitions and something like that. Right now, what we see is pure destruction of buildings, and we see lots of massacres being happening on daily basis. Unfortunately, the talks for peace and the talks for ceasefire are overshadowed by so much violence and so much massacres.
Dr. Hafoush, now, given the latest escalation in the southern suburbs of Beirut, what do you think of these current strikes in light of the timing and also the places that these strikes have targeted?
Write the questions.
Let me repeat the question, Dr. Hafoush, for you. Now, in light of the current escalation in the southern suburbs of Beirut, what do you think of the timing and the places that have been struck during these previous strikes in the past few hours?
تحياتي لكم وشكرا على الاستضافة.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
منذ أكثر من أسبوع ونصف
In fact, around a week ago, we've been seeing an escalation in the magnitude of the Islamic resistance represented by Hezbollah and the Israeli occupation forces. There is mutual escalation from both ends in order to further enhance the negotiation conditions, between the Islamic resistance represented by Hezbollah and the Israeli occupation forces. In my own calibration, I think the Israeli occupation forces wishes to get Hezbollah to succumb to the conditions proposed in these negotiations, or to succumb to Hochstein's suggested proposals for the region. In fact, the Israeli media has been announcing that the United States is optimistic about reaching a truce and even some kind of a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. But, the Islamic and that the Islamic resistance represented by Hezbollah is some kind of a military maneuver. What they're doing is just some kind of a military maneuver. And that, the provisions of the Security Council Resolution number 1701 are going to be respected and enacted. That's what is being circulated in Israeli media. But in fact, it seems that the states are going to, or are trying to separate between the Gaza front and the Lebanese front. And I think that the states are going to, or the United States is going to present some proposals in order for them to be studied and proposed in negotiations between the two belligerent parties. But, you know, there has not or there has been some media leakages from the Israeli media that there are negotiations that are being carried out, and that the negotiations are up and running. They are doing
Obviously,
that
these
and
negotiations are not really going well, are they? We are seeing this live footage right now from the southern suburbs of Beirut, where many places were targeted earlier today, and obviously the strikes are still ongoing. That's live right now in the southern suburbs of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Now, Dr. Saliba, as Dr. Hafoush mentioned, that perhaps there could be some sort of negotiation path. However, do you think that this path is now is not really on its way because of what happened today and because of what's happening in the past few hours? Now, the Israeli occupation army have been targeting places in the southern suburbs of Beirut, in which it's saying that it's reacting to what happened and what Hezbollah targeted before.
I don't think Israel is reacting to anything. It seems like Netanyahu has gotten a free, open ticket to bombard and keep striking and keep killing more innocent people and keep destroying Lebanon until probably, God forbid, January, where he probably can offer a gift to Trump with a ceasefire. So it doesn't seem like Netanyahu is ready to compromise, not even a bit, with the president, with the present administration in the U.S. They will continue escalating, and they will continue
So,
hitting
what is
hard.
Hochstein optimistic about?
I'm not sure. He's probably optimistic about a ceasefire in January. And it doesn't seem like the ceasefire is going to happen before Trump takes office. And Netanyahu is not ready to give any gift to Biden before he leaves. And let's be realistic. And let's also learn from what happened in Gaza. They kept talking about ceasefire for months. And in parallel to the talk and no action about the ceasefire, they kept bombarding Gaza, and they kept forcing the displacement of many people from one side of Gaza to the other. So this is not something that we have not seen very recently, probably a few months ago. And this is a pattern that is repeating itself again and again and again. And it's very obvious that Netanyahu has, cheered the coming of President-elect Trump, and as soon as he learned about it, he changed his cabinet, and he continued or escalated the number of strikes and the frequency of the strikes, not only in southern Lebanon but also in Beirut, and at the same time they are bombarding Syria, and so this does not seem at all that these people are going to compromise anytime soon.
Dr. Harfoush, now the Times of Israel reported that Israel is pushing ahead with efforts to forge a ceasefire in Lebanon as an early foreign policy gift, that's how they put it, for Donald Trump. Do you think that that's what it takes for a ceasefire, for a new administration, for Donald Trump to become president, so that Israel can just give it as a gift?
I think that the Israeli occupation, in light of this escalation in Lebanon and in light of the targeting of more and more expanses of land in Lebanon, and the statements of Katz, the Minister of Defense of Israel, that they are not going to approve of any ceasefire if it wasn't for the prior disarmament of Hezbollah and the return of Hezbollah forces to the Litani side. So I think that after all these statements and the Israeli statements that speak about these proposals or these or this ceasefire being the gift of Donald Trump to the Lebanese, I think that all these statements are completely just rhetoric, and they are not serious at all, because the Israeli state has an agenda to redraw the security and the geopolitical map of the entire region, in fact, and they are planning to expand the scope of this war and to perpetuate it for a very long time. And Netanyahu specifically, in fact, perceives the return of Donald Trump to the White House as something historic. And in fact, he has a lot of proposals that he is going to present to Donald Trump. And he has a lot of aims that Donald Trump is going to grant him all his aspirations and goals. You know, we know that Donald Trump has a certain peculiar take on some international and Middle Eastern issues, and, you know, regarding the ongoing war in the Middle East. But until now, I don't think that Donald Trump, regardless of his rhetoric statements that he wants to achieve a ceasefire before he actually steps into the Oval Office in January 2025, I don't think this is going to be viable for Donald Trump to do, because the war in the Middle East is getting more and more ardent by the day. And I don't know whether Donald Trump is going to do that or is just going to cheer for the agenda of Israel and is just going to support Israel with all he has in order for Israel to perpetuate its genocidal war over the Palestinian people and over the Lebanese people as well now.
Right. Let me, before we continue our discussion, let's take a look at the terms of a potential ceasefire in Lebanon. Stay with us. This is In Depth, and we are joined from Beirut by Dr. Najat Saliba, a member of the Lebanese parliament, and from Ramallah by Dr. Murad Harfoush, a writer and political analyst. Welcome again to this episode. Now, Dr. Saliba, when we were viewing the ceasefire term deals, it just came to mind, what can Lebanon do in order to ensure this path? Because the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament, Nabih Berri, he says in press statements that what's on the table is only Resolution 1701. That's the only hope, and that's the only path for any kind of deal, and that this resolution should be implemented and adhered by both sides. What can Lebanon do in light of what also the Israeli defense minister said, that Israel would continue fighting against Hezbollah until Hezbollah withdraws from the area across the Litani River?
There are many things that the Lebanese government should do immediately and on the medium and long term as well. The first thing we need to do as a Lebanese state is to elect a president, and this should remain an internal matter. And as per the constitution, all Lebanese parliamentarians should immediately go to the parliament and elect a president. Right after it, we need to elect a ministerial cabinet that is able to walk and discuss the deals that are made internationally in order for us to bring the ceasefire into a long-term peace. Those two things can happen immediately and will reflect very, very well on the international community, because it reflects that the state is able to reform itself, to respect its deadline, and to respect its institutions, and also send a message of solidarity and sovereignty that we all stand behind. At the same time, Lebanon needs to also strengthen the army, and all parties in Lebanon should stand behind the army. That is the sole armed force that will be able to protect the borders of Lebanon and also spread peace and security all across its territory. Those are from the part of the government, and those send very, very strong messages of confidence and trust vis-a-vis the international community. At the same time, those actions will also assure the international community that we, from our side, are able to apply 1701, including the 1559, which means that all hard munitions and strong munitions, including the rockets and all of that, should need to be given to the army, and no other armed forces other than the army, Lebanese army forces.
In regards to Hezbollah, right now,
of course, should be in control of any security on the territories of the Lebanese government.
Now, Dr. Harfoush, now we've been talking about the U.S. efforts to push for some sort of negotiations or a ceasefire deal. There are other states and other countries that have been condemning what's happening in Lebanon. France is one of these countries. The foreign minister had criticized Israel's insistence on having the right to attack Lebanon whenever it deems necessary. What do you think these states, including a state like France, can do to put the talks on the table, including the implementation of the 1701?
In fact, up until now, all the American efforts have not really reached a level where truce can be achieved or a ceasefire can be achieved. And in fact, all international efforts, and specifically the recent French efforts, aiming to bring a ceasefire to Lebanon have all gone in vain, because we have a lot of escalation embodied by the Israeli forces right now and carried out over the Lebanese people. And so the international community, France and other heavy-weighing countries in the European Union, maybe they will try to push in that direction. And if these European countries and Russia and China and other countries that can actually pressurize the states in order to force the Israeli occupation forces to bring a ceasefire to Lebanon, in fact, this could happen, but Israel keeps on maneuvering, and specifically Netanyahu, he keeps on maneuvering and keeps on dodging all these proposals. We have seen that, in fact, over the course of the previous year, when it came to the proposals for a ceasefire in Gaza Strip.
Right. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. Thank you very much. That was Dr. Najat Aoun Saliba, a member of the Lebanese parliament, and from Ramallah, Dr. Murad Harfouch, a writer and political analyst. Thank you both for your insights. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.